On this backpacking trip, I'm carrying an ultralight kit, but not for the usual reasons like wanting to cover a lot of miles. The obstacles on this trip are unique and require me to be nimble and agile like a ninja, but then also to bring a bunch of gear that I'm gonna have to use on day 2 that I wouldn't normally bring on a backpacking trip. My mission involves dealing with 3 main obstacles. Number 1, moving quickly and essentially straight up a mountain with a little bit of route finding and bushwhacking, with also the goal of not being recognized. Number 2, camping on top of a mountain, but in a way that doesn't get me noticed, aka stealth camping. And 3, dropping down a series of multi-story cliffs through a narrow gully. Come along as I see if the gear that I brought, the training I've been doing, and the experience that I have moving in the mountains allows me to accomplish the mission. You may be asking why plan a trip like this with 3 pretty major obstacles, and the overarching reason is that each obstacle provides some sort of training that I want to address to make my outdoor adventures a little bit more easy, as well as to be able to get on some different outdoor adventures. I'll go over the reason for each obstacle as we encounter them, but for obstacle number 1, where I'm heading basically straight up a mountain, there's 2 things that I'm looking to address. The first one being my endurance and my stamina, and especially when it comes to just going straight up a mountain. You can see it's steep where I came from, and it's gonna be steep again where I'm going. And that's the case with basically this entire trail. It's straight up and it's a calf burner. And that's something that I wanna work on. The other aspect with this trail is that it ends before you get to the top of the mountain. So for the last 100 meters, maybe 200 meters of elevation gain, I'm gonna be having to bushwhack and find my own way. The reason I wanna work on that is that I have a big trip coming up later this summer where I'm gonna be having to do a lot of bushwhacking, a lot of route finding. So the more experience I can get doing that, the better. Pushing up this steep slope is not easy either because I have a 40-pound pack. Even though all my gear is light, I have a lot of extra gear, like I mentioned, and I'm carrying up all my water for the trip, which is over 10 pounds of water. And then the kind of silly thing around not being recognized on trail is the fact that last time I went up to the top of this mountain, I took the main route, which doesn't involve any bushwhacking, but I got recognized 8 times. It took me a long time to get to the top of the mountain. And even though I love talking with people who watch the channel, it's one of my favorite things, I got a little bit of a late start today, and I'm looking to get to the top of the mountain, get set up before dinner time. So a little bit of a time crunch, and because of that, I just took this alternate route where I might not see anybody and probably won't get recognized, but it is a little bit more difficult. I'm a few miles in, hiking, definitely a lot of elevation gain really quickly, and this pack is weighing on me a bit, but good test of the legs. We'll see how I'm feeling once we get to the bushwhack. I've hit the spot where I head off trail. I purposely planned for it to start going up this kind of meadow area just so it's easy walking. So let's hit that, and then we'll see what it looks like once we hit the tree line. This is definitely a calf burner. You can see where the valley bottom is just down there, and you can see the river at valley bottom over that way. So I've been really punching the elevation getting up here, and it has been pretty much straight up, which has not been easy. I haven't seen anybody yet, so the only thing really slowing me down has been my dad bod. I think I read that there's some sort of biochemical thing that happens when men have children that results in dad bods. And so it's like a scientific thing. It's not just me being lazier and not exercising as much. This has been a fun trail so far. I think I'm on a game trail, which is probably one of the biggest hacks that you can use when you're out bushwhacking and going off trail is find some game trails that kind of go in the direction that you want to go and then follow them. Something that I've realized with my minimal off-trail navigation to date is that a lot of the time, the way that I want to go is the same way that animals have been going for centuries. Now that I'm off trail, something that I'm also doing when there is no game trail is adding in my own switchbacks, because it's a lot more effort to go straight up the mountain than it is to do switchbacks and just zigzag your way up. So that's what I'm doing in order to make this easier on myself. I'm feeling pretty good about how I'm making my way up this mountain. You can see that ridge over there where the main trail is. So at some point I'm gonna have to join back up with that, probably closer to the summit. As it stands, I'm just kind of zigzagging my way up this shoulder, and then eventually I'll cut hard that way, hard left, and meet up with the main trail and hit the summit, try and find camp. So I just hit this ridge here and checked my phone and the route that I'd kind of planned based on satellite imagery, and I'm right on my route. I definitely zigzagged a little bit more to get up here, but my plan was to get on this ridge and then follow it to the summit. So pretty cool to see that I looked at the satellite imagery, read the topography and the trees and everything like that, and then made the right call. So definitely has me optimistic for my future off-trail trips. Made it to the summit here. Definitely a slog getting up. And now time for the challenging job of finding a place to camp. It's pretty rocky up here and the wind can definitely pick up and pound this exposed area. So I'm gonna try and find somewhere sheltered and also a little bit out of the way. The summit can get pretty busy, especially at sunset as people watch the sunset over the mountains. It's 6:30 right now, so just kind of made it on the timeline that I wanted. And now to see where I can set up camp where I'm not really being seen by anybody because I just don't want to disturb other people and I want somewhere flat to sleep. So maybe just over this hill right here. Let's check it out. I also brought a tent that will hopefully help me be a little bit more incognito as well. So I got camp set up and we're working our way through obstacle 2, which is camping incognito mode, kind of stealth camping on top of a ridge. The reason that I want to stealth camp here is because it's a fairly busy summit. A lot of people come up here and while you're allowed to camp here, it's not very common. I don't want people to be giving me weird looks and asking me questions. So in order to help with that, I kind of came down the ridge a little bit and then I'm using this camo tent that I'm not sure if it's going to help. I walked up a little bit and it was still pretty easy to see it, but it might keep people from really taking a hard look down here and seeing that I'm camping. But the main obstacle with this and the thing that I'm trying to train and develop my skills with is dry camping on top of ridges in exposed areas. This area gets pummeled by wind. You can see the trees over there have just been wiped of a lot of their branches, and that's because of how much wind comes through here. So I want to try and see if I can use a bivy-like tent. This is kind of bivy adjacent, but it's really low to the ground, aerodynamic, and it should shed wind very well. So I want to see if I can sleep in one of these and not be claustrophobic and see how it does in the wind. And that's so that on future trips, I can go deeper and higher into the mountains and bring a bivy setup that's even more lightweight and even more low profile and do some of the crazy ridge walks that you can see in the distance there. The one that I'm using on this trip isn't anything fancy. It's about $100 on Amazon. It is pretty low profile and it is a bivy, but it just has a little bit more headroom, a little bit more durability, and has this camo feature, which is really the big reason why I bought it. So the big things I want to test out on this trip with this tent, how well it does in the wind, and then how comfortable I am on the inside. So we're gonna have to be doing an overnight test and check in tomorrow morning and see how it does. I do want to share with you the sleep system that I brought because even though it is a bivy-like system, I wanted to be comfortable and get a good night's sleep on this trip. I also want to share with you my dinner, which is something that a lot of people are going to find pretty crazy, but it's becoming more and more common on my trips. But before we do that, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Garage Growing Gear. Them supporting this channel has meant a lot to the channel as well as to me personally. It's allowed me to come on trips like this where I'm trying new things, exploring new terrain, and really trying to figure out new and fun ways to move through the mountains. Tomorrow's obstacle, the third and final obstacle, for example, is pretty crazy and something that I never thought that I would be trying on a backpacking trip. Garage Growing Gear is also the best place to check out new cottage company made gear like the new Tyvek gear made by Cowboy Camping or the updated line of tents from Gossamer Gear. They also carry ultralight staples like the Nemo Eclipse pad, which, spoiler, is the pad that I'm using on this trip. Check out Garage Growing Gear's new gear page, which has all of the newest items to hit the site at gggnewgear.com or at the link down in the video description. For my sleep system, like I said, I'm using the Nemo Eclipse. It's a very lightweight pad, even in the regular wide version, extremely thick, and one of the most comfortable pads that I've ever used. The vertical, slightly dimpled baffles are really comfortable. The outer tubes are slightly bigger and it really helps cradle you and keep you centered. I found it to be very effective. And then if you let some air out of it so that it's a little bit deflated, it's even more comfortable but still holds all of its stability. It's not the warmest pad. I've only been able to push it down to -2 degrees Celsius before I started feeling quite a bit of heat loss through it. But on this trip it's supposed to stay above freezing, so I should stay nice and warm as well as super comfortable. Paired with it, I'm using the Xped Mega Pillow, one of the most comfortable pillows on the market. Not the lightest, but not too bad, under 200 grams and super comfortable. And then to top it all off, I'm using a new quilt from Xped. Xped kind of jumped into the quilt game this year with this Ultra quilt, and I'm excited to test it out and see how it sleeps. My dinner should be pretty much done rehydrating. I'm almost out of water too. I brought up 2 1-liter bottles. I'm almost done the second one, but then I also carried up 4 liters of water in the Sea to Summit water cell. So this is where all of my water is I'm going to use for drinking for the rest of the night, tomorrow morning, and then all day tomorrow as well. For my dinner, I am cold soaking again. So this is kind of the meal that I've been really liking lately, which is some couscous with some bacon jerky, a salad mix, which has some like Frito type things, some nuts, as well as some other nuts I added in, and then soup mix, vegetable soup mix. It's really tasty, way better than I ever thought it was gonna be. And because of how easy it is and how cheap it is, I've been eating it on a lot of my trips. Basically the last probably 4 dinners that I've had on trail have been this. And yeah, not complaining, it's been really good. A lot of people would probably prefer a hot meal, but on really hot summer days like this, I'm pretty okay with cold soaking. And my biggest barrier before was getting something that tasted good and was enough calories. And with a bunch of tips I read online and experimenting myself, I've come to this and I really like it. It's probably what I'm gonna do for the rest of the summer. We'll see if I get sick of it. But either way, I'm saving a lot of money and not having to carry up nearly as much weight with a stove as well as a canister of fuel. I'm gonna eat dinner, enjoy this beautiful ridge, and get to bed early probably before the sun sets, because I need to get a good night's sleep in order to have my brain and my body ready to go tomorrow. It's gonna be a really tough day. I need to be on my game, really dialed in, locked in, and making sure I'm making good decisions and that my body's ready to go, because if I make a mistake, I could get seriously injured, and that's definitely not something that I want. Tomorrow morning, before we start obstacle 3 and that challenging day, I'll check in with you how the tent was, as well as the sleep system, and then we'll hit the trail. Good morning, day 2 of my mission, and it's gonna be a pretty wild day. But let's start off by going over how I slept last night, starting off with the tent. It was decently windy last night, and I think just because of how cheap this tent is and the fact that maybe it's a bivvy, it was shaking a lot and really making a lot of noise, so it was tough to fall asleep until the wind died down around midnight. But once the wind died down, I ended up being able to fall asleep and it was okay. As far as stormworthiness goes, I never felt like it was gonna get blown off the mountain or anything like that. The aerodynamicness of the tent, the fact that it sits low to the ground, makes it so that it sheds wind very well, and I'd be pretty comfortable in this in pretty severe winds. Do I like bivvies and would I want to sleep in them all the time? No, but I think this is the perfect application for them. Getting up on a ridge where you might be exposed and knowing that you're going to be able to hunker down and stay safe is a really nice feeling. And then when I woke up this morning, I was blown away. Waking up to these kind of views is kind of insane. Mountains all around me. It feels really, really cool. You have to bring your water up, but once you're up here, it's a pretty phenomenal place to camp. So I think for future trips where I'm gonna use a bivvy, I'll definitely be bringing one that's a little bit more lightweight, a little bit more technical, maybe not more room. Once I fell asleep, I had a really comfortable sleep. The Nemo Eclipse is such a ridiculously comfortable pad. You can see I do have a lot of air out of it. You know, still stable, still very comfortable. For the Exped Ultra quilt, the straps are not very intuitive, and I had some troubles figuring them out. I'm still not sure I have them set up right. And just because of that, I'm not super stoked on it. It does have some nice features like place at the head end here in order to put your phone or any sort of doodads that you want to keep close to you and inside of the quilt, and neck snap, all the fun things like that. But yeah, just a little bit disappointed with the strap system. And then the pillow at the head end over there that you can probably just see, the Exped Mega Pillow. As usual, phenomenal pillow, super comfortable. You can see that there's not a lot of room inside the bivvy, even though this is a taller one. I can't really sit up inside of it. It was hard to get changed in it. And I think that's just the nature of bivvies. You're not gonna have a lot of space and you're gonna have to just deal with that. I also didn't know where to put my pack. There's not a lot of space on the inside of the tent, just enough to bring my shoes in. And it wasn't that big of a deal on this trip to leave the pack outside the tent, but if it was a rainy trip, then that could start being an issue. If you guys know, if you're experienced bivvy campers and you know where I should be storing my pack, let me know. My only other option that I can think of is making sure that I'm not packing a lot of extra stuff and just laying it flat and putting it underneath my sleeping pad. Overall, I do like the bivvy system just for where it can get me, and I am excited to try out a lighter weight one and one that's a little bit more technical for potentially doing some of the ridges over there. They're definitely on my radar, so I want to try just really big objectives, but having a bivvy system like this makes it seem a little bit more doable. I'm gonna eat breakfast, get all packed up, and then we're dropping off the backside of this mountain, hitting a gully that has 6 cliffs in it, and making our way down those using some techniques that I've been practicing, working on, training. But it's gonna be tough. heights is probably my biggest fear when I'm out here in the mountains, and I'm trying to face that on this trip and do it safely and in a way that really kind of opens up the mountains a little bit more when it comes to traveling through them. All right, let's do this. I'm basically just heading off the backside of the mountain here. The directions to the gully said that you go through this cleared area with a bunch of scree, hit kind of the back right corner, and then head kind of down and to the right, and that should take you to the gully. If I don't find the gully, I'm in for a really tough bushwhack through some insanely tight trees down a really steep hill. It would not be fun. Either that or I hike back up this hill to the main trail, which I'm not looking forward to either if I don't find the gully. So hopefully I find the gully. That's why I'm doing it, because it's a kind of easier way down this side of the mountain, as well as a potentially way more fun way. Made it to the top of the canyon or the gully. You can see there's a little creek right here that's flowing through it. From what I understand, it does just go below ground at some point. But I'm gonna get all kitted up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about why I chose to include this obstacle as part of the mission and what I'm looking to get out of it and what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm all kitted out. I got the helmet on in order to protect my head from rock fall that might be coming down naturally, or if I fall, slip, hit my head for any reason, I definitely want the helmet on. As soon as you get into kind of this rock climbing type stuff, it's a good idea to have a helmet. I also got my harness on with all my gear on here that I'm gonna need in order to get down the canyon, and then I have my rope because I'm gonna be rappelling this series of 6 cliffs by myself. This is kind of crazy. I've been practicing a lot, but it's something that I feel very comfortable with, and it's gonna be an adventure. I'm just gonna take my time and make sure I do all the steps that I need to do, because if you miss something, rappelling is probably one of the most common ways people either injure themselves or die when they're doing a rock climbing activity. So let's make our way down this canyon, and we'll try and find the first spot, the first cliff that we're gonna be rappelling down. So it looks like we're coming up to a cliff here already. See if this is actually something that you rappel down, or if I'm just expected to down climb. Let's see. I think I walk around this. Yeah, let's do that. You can see we're getting deeper in the canyon here. The walls are starting to close in all around me, and it's starting to feel a little real. I am very scared of heights, but that's one of the reasons why I really want to do something like this, is because of my fear. I think it'd open up a lot of opportunity for me if I could face my fears in controlled environments where I'm roped up and have a harness and feel safe. As well, if I am in a situation that feels too sketchy, maybe I bring a rope, maybe I bring a harness, even if it's something that's for someone else would seem really easy and basic. For me, it might just give me that extra little peace of mind and allow me to push my limits a little bit. I don't plan on doing any sort of extreme rock climbing or anything like that. I think that's a long ways away, if something that I'll ever feel comfortable doing. But there are some trips I have planned and that I'm looking at where having some rock climbing skills would be super useful. Cool little cave here with the water dripping down, really pretty. One mistake that I made already is that I got all geared up way too early. There's a lot of bushwhacking to the first rappel, and my rope and all my gear is catching on all the sticks. Lesson learned, definitely wait for the first rappel, first cliff before gearing up. Even though I got geared up way too early, I probably still would have put my helmet on, because Canadian rocky rock is so brittle and just cracks and falls apart all the time. And walking underneath this cliff would have felt really sketchy without a helmet. Really cool though. This is awesome. I'm excited to get down a little bit deeper in the canyon. Also a little nervous, especially for the second rappel, because that one is apparently straight down and really high. Things are starting to narrow up. Let's go. Here we go. I think I made it to the first cliff. Yeah, you could scramble along the left there, but you're exposed to falling off that cliff and potentially injuring yourself. And I did see some bolts back here. So this is what I'm gonna be rappelling off of. I'm gonna put my rope through these 2 rings, and then I'm gonna lower myself down that cliff. Let's go over how that all is gonna work, because it's quite the system and there's a lot involved. And like I said, I need to be making sure I'm doing everything properly. One of the pieces of gear I have with me is a personal anchor system. So if I do get to a spot where the bolts are really close to the edge of the cliff, I can just clip into the cliff, into the bolts here, pull myself tight, and then I can lean back and be safe and not worry about it and set up my entire rappelling system. Right here, I probably don't need that, even though I just almost slipped and fell. I can just set up my rappel and then head down. The other things I have with me on my backside here, I have a self-rescue kit. Because I'm alone, I want to have a way to get back up the rope. So if I short rope myself, if I'm going down a cliff and I don't have enough rope to make it all the way down, I can climb back up the rope using all the gear that I have here. And I also have a system to be able to set up an anchor. So if I get somewhere and the bolts look sketchy, or I just can't find them, then I have a system where to set up my own anchors, which is important because as you're going down, it becomes a lot harder to get back up. Having these redundancies and backup systems is important, especially when alone, because as soon as you start going down a canyon, it's really hard to get out of it and get back up. Then I have some gloves in case I feel like I need them for rappelling, and then my rappel device and my third hand. So the other big piece obviously is the rope. I'm using a static canyoneering rope. There's a lot of reasons why that I'm not going to get into why I use a static rope versus a dynamic rope, which is kind of standard for climbing. But I'm going to get this uncoiled and we'll set it up through the rappel rings. So step one, feed the rope through both of the loops, and then I'm tying knots at the end of the rope so that if I'm going down and it turns out that I don't have enough rope, I don't just rappel right off the end of the rope and I end up getting stopped by these knots, and then I can use my self-rescue system. From here, I find the middle point of the rope by taking the ends and just flaking it through the cords here, the rappel rings. And then from here, I can get my rappel gear all set up. So I'm using this canyoneering device in order to rappel down. So you stick the two loops through it and then through the carabiner, and then you do that up. And then this allows you to lower yourself down the route. But this is not the only thing that I'm going to rely on. I'm also using a backup third hand. So this I hitch into my belay loop there around the rope as well as many times as I need to feel comfortable. Then do that up with the locking carabiner. And so what this does is so that if this fails or I let go, it still stops me. So if I take all the weight, I can put it all onto this part here. There's nothing on here right now, and that's what's stopping me. It's a really nice backup system to have. And then when you pull on it, it releases so I can rappel down just like this, very smoothly. So from here, I'm gonna throw the rope down. There's no one down there, but usually you yell, rope. Nice, and I know that it hits the bottom, which is very good news. So now let's rappel down. So I'm also being careful not to trying not to get the rope on anything, any sharp rocks as I'm going down. And just sitting back into it. There we go. Oh, we're rappelling. Oh, this is so cool. I'm a ninja. And then we're at the bottom, just like that. And then the next step is to get out of the system. So I'm going to undo my carabiner with my third hand. I'm just going to leave it tied up here because it's super useful just to have, and I think the next rappel is right there. And then I'm gonna take the rope out of my rappel device, and I'm gonna take one of the knots out, one of my backup knots. And then because someone was nice enough to install the rappel rings and the bolts up there, I can just pull on my rope. Actually, I'm gonna take this other knot out too, because I just learned a lesson that canyoneers probably already know, and people who rappel, is that this knot is going to get stuck if I don't take it out. So let's take that out. Then the rope should slide nice and easy. And here it comes, rope. That comes down harder than I thought. All right, I really need to mark the midpoint on this rope. That would make my life a whole lot easier as I'm doing this. I'm not really sure what to do with this rope in between rappels, so I think I'm just going to carry it. Because I think it's just right there. Let's go check it out. Yeah, here are the rappel rings, and here's the cliff right here. That looks steep. Can you guys see if I hold you out there? How's it look? I'm a little nervous now. I think it's straight down as well, so I'm gonna be pretty exposed here. But let's get set up and we'll do this thing. Apparently I say let's do this thing when I'm nervous. That's what I'm learning right now. Rope. I heard it hit ground. That's a good sign. All right, let's get hooked in here. I'm in on both bolts. I inspected the bolts to make sure they look good. My locking mechanisms on all my carabiners are good. Also, I want to weight my third hand, make sure that's working, but then also weight my rappel device, make sure that's working. And then I feel like I'm good to go. I feel like it's easier once you actually have some more load on the rope. Maybe I need to sit down into it a bit more. Okay, let's go. This is it. Don't fall off the end and die. What? That's so freaking cool. So this one's coming from high, so I'm actually gonna move over here so that the rope doesn't hit me. Whoa! I'm glad I did that. All right. Next one. Looking good. I think it hit. All right. Well, that's not good. So we're at the halfway point at the third set of bolts here, third cliff. This is also looking like a pretty big one that has me a little bit nervous, but so far I feel like I'm moving good. I just need to make sure that I'm not getting too excited and going too quickly. I think that's something that probably gets rock climbers. I can see how it could easily happen is you're in the flow, you're feeling good, you're going, then you just miss one thing, and that's what leads to a catastrophe. So I'm gonna slow myself down, take my time, make sure I'm doing my checks, and get through these next 3 canyons safely. Rope. I think I heard it hit the ground again, so that's good. This looks like a pretty easy one. I kind of want to just hand bomb it. No, let's do it safely. Let's work on our systems. Okay, so this time I tried something new and I hand coiled it and then I'm throwing it down. I think that works a lot better for not having issues. Rope. There we go. Smooth. Made it down the canyon. What an adventure. That was pretty cool. One of the coolest things that I've done in a while, and definitely something that I hadn't even been thinking about that would be on my radar, but pretty fun experience. I definitely learned a lot on my first canyon, and I'm glad I chose one that was relatively simple because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And if your rope gets caught up, if something just doesn't go according to plan, you can be in a pickle. And when you're alone, that risk gets exacerbated exponentially. So Definitely learned a lot, something I'm gonna be doing more. And if I am gonna be doing it in a more challenging canyon, something that I'll be doing with other people. I do really like the opportunities and the safety that having a harness and rope and all the gear brings. I felt really secure the entire time. And I think if I was scrambling something a little bit outside my comfort zone, then including some rope and maybe some active protection could be a good way to go about it. That was a really fun trip. I love trying new things, and the fact that I got to try 3 new things on one trip, work on my route finding off trail, bivvy on top of a ridge, and then rappel down 6 cliffs, that was pretty awesome and something that I'm really glad I got to do, and definitely increased my skills in a bunch of different zones. Standard backpacking trips are fun, but so are trying trips that push you outside your comfort zone a little bit and allow you to work on some new skills. Go check out this video if you want to see the first trip that I ever did pack rafting. It was, again, a solo trip, and I learned a lot on that trip. A lot of fun. Pack rafting is another one of those things that just allows me to move through the mountains in a different way. And at some point, I'd love to combine all the different unique ways that I've learned over the years: hiking, skiing, pack rafting, and climbing, all into one trip. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.